and then I'll give it a couple seconds to give us a little moment to get some pre-roll that way I can edit stuff in and make sure our audio's go and all that fun stuff. Okay, so spend a moment telling everybody that I apologize because I haven't been around for a while.
Yeah, I'm missing the videos.
So, okay, welcome everybody. It has been quite some time since people have seen my non-squinting face on camera. For the last year, I've been going through a bunch of fun stuff with eye surgeries and in long-term recovery after the retina on my right eye detached 3 different times. Now my right eye is full of oil, and I have another surgery coming up in the next few months to take all that oil out and have all new fun things. Hopefully, have less issues than I have this last year. So hopefully we have some new content coming soon. We're gonna try to do some overviews of games. I don't want to do reviews of games because when you review, you give your opinion on, hey, this is a scale 1 to 10. This is awesome. If we do an overview of a game, then we can tell you about the different things of a game that may interest you versus telling you why we thought, our opinion on it. Because every game out there is going to have a different thing that people like about it. You're going to get people that want the games that are crunchy, then you're going to get people that want the games that aren't crunchy. You're going to want sci-fi, fantasy. There's going to be different things. So doing a review and giving it a grade or whatever, I don't think is necessarily fair to a role-playing game. Whereas if we just do an overview and tell you about all the backstory and the key features and how the game plays, that allows you to pick the game that you want. Okay, so with all that, and I'll get into more stuff later. I'll do an update video, but we have someone that we've talked to on the channel before. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Jeffrey Cedric from the Netherlands, creator of Grand Odyssey from Sacred Fire Games.
So we talked to you when you first launched your game, and sadly your Kickstarter didn't do well, but you still launched the game. We've had a copy in the library. That was 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's roughly 2 years ago. That was all my fault that the Kickstarter didn't work because I just launched it and assumed that it would go automatically and see if people react. Didn't work out that well, and only the last couple of days I did a social media run and we managed to get 10%. So yeah, that failed
Yeah,
horribly.
yeah. You guys are already at about half your goal,
Yeah, 50%
and
now.
yeah, and you're in that awkward period between everybody sees it the first couple days and gives you some stuff, and then nobody does anything for that next 20 something odd days, and those last few hours is when everybody else be like, okay, yeah, we'll support it as well.
Yeah,
Um,
it was weird. The first 2 hours we hit 33% in just moments. It was like, oh my god, that's different than last time. And then it stalled and slowly creeped up.
Yeah, and yeah, that next month is the pain because like you'll get a couple trickle in, and then all of a sudden at right at the last minute is when you'll cross the line. Well, I'm pretty sure you'll cross the line because it is a good game. Over the last couple of years, I have talked to a lot of people about it in the library. We've showed it off to a lot of people. My only joking complaint about it is because you have it in the European A4 style. It doesn't fit in the shelves in the boxes with all the rest of the games.
Yeah. We're going to change that. We are going to look for a printer publisher that makes the universal book sizes, and so we can also make the letter print a little bit bigger in that sense, in that regard, because they are small, because it is A4 size, and we want to make it a little bit more easier on the eyes as well.
Yeah, it's a nice book. So, tell us about the world that you're crafting here, because it's a game system that you can use in conjunction with other stuff. Correct?
Yes, it is a modular TTRPG system in the sense that every chapter is designed that you can just slot out and just insert it in any other tabletop role playing game as long as it uses a D20 mechanic. So, like Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, Shadow of the Demon Lord, but not games like Call of Cthulhu because that's a D100 system. However, character creations and the rules in the Game Master section are usable because those are specific focus on how to create a game or how to create a character with also questions for who is your character, like asking specific questions towards the player to create a character, like what are you supposed to think about so you can make it better.
Nice. So tell us about the world that you've created for this system.
Yeah. So within Grand Odyssey, it plays off in the world of Nebera. Um, it is a very expansive world, and we're going to make a dedicated lore book for that because many people want to know more. We only trickled in small bits of information within Grand Odyssey. The reason is because we want to make a modular system. If we go hard coded into this is from this region, this is for that, you get that immersion breaking point that you cannot slot it in everywhere. So there will only be little sprinkles in it.
Nice. What are some really unique things about? So, like, I know on the Kickstarter, you guys break down armor types. That's something that's unique. That's done very differently than, say, how D&D or Pathfinder does it.
Yeah, correct. Most people are struggling with some form or format to create armor that sponges damage, that reduces damage, and all that. And everything goes very mathematical, or they had some fun ways to do it, uh, but it still doesn't feel uh, that uh, immersion point that I am reducing armor, the damage with my armor, or I am dodging certain attacks. And we try to make it simple in a way that is just like pluses and minuses, and simple ways to increase strength for the armor. So it is modular because if you go for a hard code, this is what armor does. In certain systems, like for instance, like Dungeons and Dragons, it would not work then in Pathfinder because you have also the level bonus. So there's a difference there. So we made a simple plus on power and the same as minus in armor. And if you slot it in Dungeons and Dragons, you ignore the pluses in power and armor because you then have dodge. Unless you want to use the armor type as it is, you add also power to the speech. But there's a whole matrix that explains how that works. But if we go hardcore, this is what armor and dodge does. You can't use it as a modular feature. And the whole point is that it is modular.
So armor is more of an it absorbs damage versus just making you harder to hit.
Yes. To simplify the explanation, the combat stat is like person tries to hit target, needs to roll to meet or exceed their dodge roll or AC for like Dungeons and Dragons. Once they hit, they roll damage. That damage is reduced by their armor. That is the basic version of what it is.
I like it when armor is when it absorbs damage versus he's like, oh, I have a AC of X because because my armor. And it's like, well, if I hit, I would do boatloads of damage, but because your armor is high means I don't ever hit you. And it's like
Yep.
always confused me.
Yeah, and there are different types of armor because you have the natural armor that is like how tough you are yourself. For me, also a reason why we create this. When I envision a level 20 barbarian versus a level 1 barbarian, if he punches him, he will like ah just like on their skin. And it's like it doesn't phase and doesn't do that because it's their natural armor. They progress every level and they have like a minimum threshold. That's your natural armor. And a low level barbarian cannot overcome that with his current strength. So he needs to get stronger and tougher to overcome that hurdle. So it also makes fun teaser for bad guys in early levels. Like I don't have to do anything. You're not going to beat me. And then you have the worn armor, which is like the knights in shiny armor. Those reduces physical damage. They have immunity to certain types of damage. And then you have magical armor that is literally to protect for the arcane. So there's also a Trinity circle for that as well.
And that's something else I like is you have those different types of armor. Um, what are some other like unique things that have you and your team have created for this game?
The other thing that I personally love is the weapon systems. Because we went more in depth of what weapons could do, so that martial classes could do more. And we pretty much did a extensive research of culture and mythology, like we always do with Grand Odyssey, because everything is like the core rules of mythology itself and the historical culture of our species as humanities. Um, the thing with weapons like swords and all that, they have categories and subcategories. So if we take a arming sword, for instance, uh, it is in the sword category, but it is also in the subcategory of straight swords, because that's what a bastard sword is, or an arming sword, and then it can do a thrust attack, a swing attack, and a pummel attack, and it has a reaction to do a parry. But because it has the subcategory of straight swords, when you critically hit, you also um, forces a fortitude save on your opponent creature. They get bleeding as a condition, and if they critically fail, they can lose a limb, like lose an arm or something like that, if they are not protected by armor. If they are, they are disarmed, like they lose their weapon. Not literally lose their hand, because that's not what it does then. Unless they're not wearing armor, then yes.
That's a different disarmed.
Yes. So those are things like that also works more in the favor of martial classes, because they get outshined by the caster classes. And yes, a caster can do this if they have a sword, but why would they waste an action to try and do that if they have spells?
Is how different is magic in this than compared to say fifth edition D and D?
Pretty similar, but we don't have spell slots. We have a mana system.
Okay, because D and D is the fancy and magic system with the
Yeah.
slots. Yeah, so you're
Yes.
going somewhere between uh, D and like DCC, where D&D you've got your slots, and then DCC you can just cast as many times as you want, and then
Yeah.
the wildness of that system will will come back and bite you in the butt.
Yes, that we pretty much have the similar system to that. The difference is that it is very hard coded to the species that you choose, not the class that you pick. Because every class that we have uses then the mana system we call spirit. But for like a warrior that is like a fighter, they use spirits in combat maneuvers, tactics, pushing themselves further. That they use their inner spirit or their warrior spirit in a sense. Like barbarians use their raging spirit to rage and to do brutal strikes and all that. So the spirits are used in every class, um, except for the mechanic, because they don't need spirit. But they use a different system with gear bits, so they need to collect things. Um, but yeah, that's a little bit how this how the spirit system works. And just like what you said with the DC, you can go hams and supernova, but you don't get everything back if you do a long rest. You get back for every hour that you rest, you roll your spirit die, and that's what you get.
So you truly need to rest, not like how
Yes.
some systems like, oh, I took a 5 minute nap, I'm totally cool to go.
No, 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 no. That doesn't work like that. At low levels, level one, three, maybe four, yes, 6, 7 hours is more than enough to get full on. But
But
at
you
high levels,
you just don't have much spirit to
yeah,
refill.
yes. But high levels, no, no, you're not going to get that off that easy off the hook.
Yeah. So speak on the spirit a little more because I do really like what you guys did there. and how different species have different amounts of spirit available to them.
Yes.
So, it's like they're more tapped into it, some species than others.
Yeah. Uh, for instance, like humans have like a D8 of spirits because they're pretty average, and they have the intuitive spirit. They can be very adaptive and all that. Our bird race, the averons, they don't have that. They have more of a D6. Um, the orcs that we have, they have a D6 as well, and I believe the which one was it? The gnomes had a D10 because they're very intuitive with magic because they are fey creatures and all that.
Nice. I like that, and I'm that's why I'm not a big fan of the newest D&D. Was they just kind of the different species are kind of just a skin choice on top of your generic character, whereas you're continuing with different species have, and it makes the decision a very important one in your character creation.
Yeah, I got some backlash for one of my players love gnomes, but their hit point dies at D4. And he wants to fight me every time,
They're small and
but
squishy.
no. Yeah. If I see a gnome, I was like, yeah, I can punch him with one hit, and I'm not strong. I can do that. It's a gnome.
Exactly. Yeah.
Then again, he has very powerful magic. That's the base damage you do with magic, and a very vast amounts of spirits. So if he has the distance, yes, he can fuck me up. Yes.
See, and I like that because you have to make those hard choices when setting up your character. It's like, what do I want to play? I remember in second at D&D, sitting down with people, and we would just roll straight down, and those were our stats, and then we'd have to build our characters based upon the stats we rolled. And in old D&D, you had minimums and maximums in stats. So it really made it tough. You're like, man, I really wanted to play an elf this time, but I don't have a high enough wisdom, so I
Hey,
can't
you
go
lock
down to
yourself out. Yeah.
exactly. So you're like, oh, I'm playing a human because one of my stats wasn't good enough.
Yeah. With the lockout part, with I think Dungeon and Pathfinder has that you need to have a minimum stat requirement for a class. We don't have that. But if you want to play a rogue or for us a scoundrel uh, with 3 decks, go ahead. Be the most horrible rogue or scoundrel or thief or whatever. Be that if you want to play it. You can then have a charismatic version of it. That is fine. It is your character. Why should I lock you out for that gameplay? So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you're not doing the
it's
lockout,
weird.
but you're doing the advantages, disadvantages kind of style of
Yeah,
the species, and
yeah.
then your classes. So what are some of your classes you have in the game?
For the core rulebook as of now, because I have multiple classes already ready, but we need a lot more art, and uh, we cannot get that with the current funding goal, so I need to wait until this book sells a little bit more. But for the current book, we have the warrior, which is basically a fighter, a soldier, a knight. We have our mage, which is one of the 3 spellcasters of the arcane arts. We have the ranger, and we have the priest, which is like a clerical figure, like a healer. Um, the newer ones, because that's the one in the old book, the newer ones that are being added to it will be the warlock and the paladin. Uh, and there was another one, top of my head, the scoundrel that I talk about, which is my thieving, my rogue, all that.
That all-encompassing, you know, underbelly character.
Yes. So those are the ones that are in the new core book. Those will be added.
Nice. Well, I'm looking forward to that because we have the old core rulebook. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some other things to ask you about the game because I mean,
Shoot.
there's a lot of fun things that I like about it from the old rulebook that we have. What are some other changes that you've done in the last couple of years? So you said you're adding some new classes. Have you gone back and tweaked anything from the old rule book?
Uh, Not much. It's more like from like calculations to make sure that the math works because we updated the spells as well. But pretty much the core is the same. We did added some species because the dwarves are now in there. I got a lot of hate that the dwarves weren't in there. So the dwarves are now in there. The stubborn boys are coming in. It isn't that I didn't want because I love dwarves, but it's more like we wanted to keep the book as small as possible so it's affordable for everyone. Because that's the thing we want to do. Want to make that threshold as low as possible so that everybody can get into the hobby of
Yeah,
TTRPG.
yeah. When I'm seeing core rule books that are $60 or more US, and that's just and then it's $60 for the player's handbook, and then $60 for the GM's guide, and then $60 for a monster manual. And you're
Yeah,
looking. I mean, yeah, you only have to pay that once because I mean you never need to buy those books again. But that's still a pretty high
allegedly.
threshold. Yeah, allegedly, it is a pretty high threshold to get people in. That's why
Yeah,
I love companies that try to keep their prices low. I mean, a couple years ago, Dungeon Crawl Classic, Goodman Games, they complained because they had to raise their core book by $5. So they went from $25 on their paper their soft cover to $30, but they're still considerably cheaper than most of the alternatives out there.
yeah. Now we're going to stay with 25. We're not going to change that. And yeah, just like the others, well, the smaller companies, you only need one book to play. You don't need all of them. This is all you need. Everything's in there.
And I like that. I also do like having a separate book for like advanced stuff for GMs and stuff, and I know that's
Of
something you have
course, yeah.
planned in the future. Um, as a kid, when my brother and I went and got the AD&D first edition book, and then we got home and found out we couldn't play the whole game, we were upset. But years later, I look at that and we're like, it's sometimes it's a good thing because there's plenty of things you don't want your players to know.
Yeah,
But nowadays, I mean, you're it's so easy to get your hands on the books. So it's not like back in the '80s where, hey, you don't have the Dungeon Master's Guide. Good luck getting this information. Now it's just a click away, and
yeah,
somebody sitting at the table can download the book and challenge you on a rule. So I see the advantages of having those good core rule books that have everything you need to do to play, a little splash of advanced stuff for the GMs, and then get you going, and then you can come out later with a more advanced book that the GMs will want, and the players are like, I don't need that.
yeah. Because it's tailored to the game master, and for the players, there's no benefit for them.
Yeah, but everything needs to be in that core book so you can at least do the entire game.
Yeah, I feel like we nailed that. It's a happy place for everyone there.
Yeah, and yeah, from the one that we have from you, it seemed fairly well laid out. There was no real complaints other than like I said, it was A4, which is coming to the U.S. is a very oddball size book. I've got in the library probably about 10 or 15 European books, and they kind of all stick out like a sore thumb on the shelf because they're all skinny too. They're very
Yeah,
thin and are very tall. You're like, oh, yep, that's a European game.
I mean, we like to stick out, just like to stand out. So it's probably one of our traits.
They're not too bad. It's not like oh geez, I hate the people that do the sideways books. So basically, it's a
Oh yeah,
standard book size, but they've turned it sideways, so it can never be on the shelf. Like when you pass
yeah,
to the end of the show,
sticking out.
yeah. So yeah, it's in the box wrong. It's on the shelf weird. It's like I was like, just please stop doing that, people. They're like, oh, but when
Yeah,
you
no.
open it up, and I was like, yeah, it's a pain in the butt to read rules that way as well. Oh, I hate seeing the rule books laid out that way. So I know I've asked you some of these questions in the past, so but it's been a while since anybody's viewed anything from the library. What was your first role playing game?
My first role playing game was a real life reenactment, not like a TTRPG, more like a LARP. Um, then at a certain point, my best friend invited me to a game of Dungeons and Dragons, which I kind of didn't want to do because in my head that was for nerds, and I'm not a nerd. Apparently, I was wrong. I'm one of the biggest nerds. So, yeah. Um, and I tailored towards hosting my own game and eventually creating the chaos that is Grand Odyssey.
I wouldn't say it's chaos. It's fairly well. Well, maybe chaos on your end.
It is now. It used to be a lot of chaos. My
So
notes were like in words written, like the entire book. So
just
no
tons
tabs,
of
nothing.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. If anybody ever goes back try to read my notes on anything, I feel for them because yeah, my notes are just stream of consciousness, misspelling, doodles, and somebody's like, what are you writing? I'm like, yeah, just I'll figure it out later.
maybe it's a nice stretch goal that if we get our 100% goal before the end week, I'm going to release the Word documents of my original notes. Have fun.
People are like, what is this?
What is this? How can you know?
Um, so so what made you want to actually design your own game?
It wasn't really like I want to create my own game or something like that. It's more like homebrew that was there because it bothered us of the current rulings. It fit nice. We tried to work with it, and as we progressed and made a game that we, as a table, loved, later was also loved by other friends who also implemented it, and it expanded, and they kind of forced me to create it in a sense. So that's when I really sat down, did the number crunching with a couple of my friends that are mathematical geniuses for 5 years to make sure that everything works. So it is modular before we actually finished the game and released it in 2022.
I always love hearing kind of like why people end up creating things because they're uniquely different stories. Because some people are like, oh, I always wanted to do one. We were talking to a guy. He played one role playing game. He's like, oh, this is cool, but it's fantasy. He goes, why isn't there a generic one? And then
Yeah.
he went sat down and created a generic role playing game that you could adapt and. It's actually a good little system, and it's these weird little ideas that come through people's heads, or like you with the homebrew. I know a couple other people that have created their own games that are doing well. That one, the game that they had been playing was died in the '90s, and they just kept playing and kept changing and tweaking things over 20 years. And everybody goes, "Hey, this is no longer at all the same game. Like you should just release this." And he
Yeah,
sat down and goes,
yeah.
"Oh wow, yeah, this it's absolutely not the same game anymore." Like at its heart, it was still there, but he'd made all new races, all new, classes, weapons, bad guys. He'd changed and updated tons and tons of the rules. So, after 20 years of tinkering, he didn't realize he'd had an entirely new game.
That sounds very familiar.
Yeah, it's kind of funny how that goes. Is you being that creative person running a game, how much of that becomes a new entity.
Yeah. And you can still, like for everyone who wants to create it, you can still do your own homebrew things and you can release them on PDFs and all that if you don't have so much for a book. But if people give feedback and likes it or even get comments or even improve it, you can work on that and maybe eventually create also your own game.
Yes, exactly, and that's great advice for people. If you have a good homebrew, sit down, clean it up, make it something that you can present to others. You'd be amazed at what other people are always looking for. Sometimes you just you're sitting in a rut and don't know where you want to go with your game, and somebody will buy a 99-cent PDF to go a whole new direction
Yeah.
in their one of the artists, early artists in Magic Gathering, Brian Snowdy, he and a friend of his that is an author, they do the 99-cent modules, and they're on Drive Through RPG. So I think you have like 10 modules, and they're really good modules, and they're just 99-cent PDFs.
Yeah.
The only time you can buy them physically is if you see them at an event, and they're really, I mean, good modules. And I love having access to stuff like that for people because you never know who's out there that needs that next step or nudge into a more cohesive game setting.
Yeah, and there's always game masters or players that need a little boost of inspiration to create something, and that's kind of also why we created a modular system, because it's like, oh yeah, doesn't really work for my martial class. Also, oh, here's a weapon system. Click it in. Oh, that is handy. We can use that from now on, and you can still play your game. You don't have to play a new game for that.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I like about what you're doing is because it is a modular system that's designed to sit on top of other game systems. It's because people all the time like, oh, I don't know how to get my friends to play X, Y, or Z, or we're really struggling to get new players into our game because they play Pathfinder or D&D, and those are the well, D&D is 80% of the market.
Yeah,
So if if you're trying to peel people away from the market leader, good luck. So you're not trying to peel people away from the market leader. You're trying to give people something to add on to the market leader.
yeah. I don't know if it's a compliment, but I kind of take it as a compliment. People described it as a gateway drug. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, there is more than just Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, and I love stuff like that because one of the things we do in the library is I try to introduce people into all other types of RPGs, and well, having that thing that you go, oh, you play 5e or you play Pathfinder. Hey, have you tried this? This plays on top of it, so it gives you a
Yeah,
new experience. And then you go, oh, hey, there's more, and then you come back in a few weeks. We're like, what else can we play?
yeah, exactly. So that's the beauty of it. The only people that I have encountered that were against what Grand Odyssey is were people that were like, no, only Dungeons and Dragons is the greatest one, and they were calling things, and it's like, yeah, but I did this, so it works better. Yeah, but this is, yeah, but I did this, so that actually works better for you. And but in a sense, this is just homebrew. Yes, what you think Dungeons and Dragons is.
Exactly. I was like, I have talked to I got to talk to Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson when I was younger before they passed,
Oh, that's
and
amazing.
everything that they did was Blackmore was just a homebrew off of a tabletop miniatures game, and Dave
Yeah, the
and his
war game, right?
players, yeah, it was war game. They were playing
Yeah,
chainmail. So basically, I mean, they were
chainmail. Yeah, that's the
yeah.
one. I keep forgetting the name.
So
Yeah,
these guys were all playing other types of miniatures games. Chainmail came out so that they could stop playing armies and they could play individuals or like
yeah.
squads. And
The
then
story within the army game.
yeah, and then from there, Dave Arneson's people, like he and his players, started coming up with like backstories and everything for their character, their individuals in Chainmail, and then that grew into something, and then he and Gary Gygax sat down and turned it into the white box.
Yeah.
There weren't great rules, but they were homebrew,
I
and
mean, it was the start of it. So, yeah, you didn't know where to start. It's like, this is just a random idea. We don't have anything to base on. Now we have something to base on. So, of course, they start out better because they already made the mistakes.
exactly. We've got 50 years of mistakes to grow on,
Yeah,
and there's thousands upon thousands of awesome games out there. And like I said, I like what you guys are doing because you're making a cool new world and system that can plop in on top of what people already know and are experiencing. So they're only having to learn a little bit new versus a whole new system, and they're able to go on and do more with that, than they would normally with just whatever the base game is.
Yes, absolutely.
And I also your species I find much more entertaining than the species that have what species have become in 5e. They're the
They're
species
more
in
individual,
5e.
yeah.
Yeah, well, and then especially I call it D&D 5.25 because they're calling it D&D 2024.
Yeah, it's just 5.5 for me.
So it's not even like a whole half edition. It's so I call it
Yeah,
5.25 because yeah, the species in that are just so yeah, they're just generics with a cosmetic skin on top, and it's like
yes.
you're building generic humanoid, and then at the end you're like, and it's an elf.
Yeah. I mean, it's the same one they had with Tasha. It's like you can choose whatever modifier you have, but it's like, but then why do you choose the race or species? Then it's just for the little bonus that nobody else has, like dark vision or something. It,
Yeah, and
it,
then
it, it doesn't
that's all
feel like
basically
you're a
it. Yeah,
species anymore. It's all
yeah,
the same.
yeah. You're generic humanoid with insert paid downloadable content here.
Yeah, but for instance, if you choose like a gnome for my world that has a D4 in health, but you still go like, I'm gonna play a barbarian, that is hilarious. Because yes, it
Absolutely.
has a D4, but when they rage, it's effectively a D8, and because of the spirit system, they don't run out of rage. In fact, gnome has so much spirit, they can just keep on raging, just keep on going angrily. They're pretty terrifying.
So kind of like Bruce Banner, he's always angry.
Yes, yeah, yeah. I mean, I could make a subclass that you can grow bigger and
That
just
would be
go for
hilarious.
that. Yeah, I mean, or someone can homebrew it. So I'm not
Exactly.
stopping it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
somebody
go for
that
it.
would be awesome. Somebody homebrew a type of barbarian gnome that gets bigger when he rages.
Yeah, I think we already discussed with the last video the possibilities with the species and races that we already have. Like you can play actually a Goro character with the multiple hands and corner people with the finishing move and all that,
Yeah,
or
there's a
Doc Ock.
there's a
It's
ton of
all
stuff you
possible.
guys can do. So, what are your base species that you have? Because you mentioned the avians, the gnomes. You
The
said you
humans,
brought
of
in
course.
yeah, so you humans and you brought in dwarves because
Yeah.
everyone. I and it's funny because I'm just not the dwarf guy.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
I've never I read The Hobbit when I was real little, and just the dwarves in The Hobbit I just found so irritating that it shaped my image of fantasy dwarves forever, of just being the annoying character. And I had somebody's like, they're not annoying. And then he went back and he read The Hobbit again. He's like, oh man, those dwarves are horrible.
Yeah. Uh, for the dwarves that I created, from all the fantasy and mythology and lore, people keep saying like dwarves are strong. Yes, they are strong because they're a warrior race. But the most common feature is like they keep getting up. No matter how much you hit them, they keep
They're
getting
stout.
up. They're stubborn, they're resistant. So they don't have much of a power boost. Like their power is similar to a human, but they are the only species that has an hit point die of a D12,
Oh, nice.
which instantly go like, if you make a constitution build dwarf, you got that hardy warrior. You don't even have to do much. They keep taking hits. They are designed for that. And they have resistances to like spell effect because that's what they are. They are stubborn. It's like you cannot control me. So topping it up with a barbarian or a warrior, you get the fancy dwarf. You get the one of mythologies and the stories. So that's how we create our species. Really look and listen to our mythology and our culture. And it's like, how can we properly represent them? So they don't have to be strong. They already are strong. The class that you choose makes them stronger.
Yes, and I
And
like that.
And the other species that we have is our own created species, just like the Acheron, which is like a bird race, which is the Lunestrian. That was one of my players that wanted to create a character with a new pantheon based on Hinduism and Aztec mythology, and that we called the Lunestrians. And basically, they are anthropomorphic humanoids, like humans with animal features. And you choose an animal and choose the amount of features that you want to have, like things of the Nekomini, the Japanese cat girl, things like that. Or you can be like a legit cat that can talk. And the size can also vary from small to, I believe, large. Because yes, you can play a large creature in my game. I'm not like everybody is small or medium. No, you can. The size can be variable. Like our Goliaths and our what was the name? Furbolgs are large creatures, just like the mythology has them. Um, Thing of the Lunatians, they have a transformative power that they can only use once per day. But if you use that power before level 10, you lose control. You go like mad, you don't see recognize your allies. But you go like two sizes larger at most, depending on how much you grow, you get more power. But you go feral. So that's very fun. It's like a Hail Mary act. But yeah, there's something you can do, like transform it into a bigger beast of whatever animal you chose.
It's a tool in your bag, but there's negative effects if you use it before you're ready.
Yeah, the thing we did that because we wanted to make our species very customizable, and the most what most people want to do is create their favorite character. So the reason why we create Lunastrian like this is pretty much any anime character with animal traits you can now make. But if you want to create Goku, you just take a humanoid creature with a monkey tail, and once a day or once a full moon, you go Uzaru monkey form and go all ape shit. So you can play that now easily. You just pick Lunastrian and you're done. And you can do like a brawler, which is the martial art type, and you can do all that.
I like that. I forgot we were talked about that because it's a very unique uh, concept because it's a very customizable species, which is
Yes.
not normal.
Yes.
So that allows a lot of options for players to get really creative at that species level that they don't get at other in other games.
And there are also some hilarious traits, like you can also choose a reptile subspecies, and they have the trait that if you lower your metabolism, you can last long without food, but you move incredibly slow, like one fourth of your maximum speed, which could be annoying for your party, but in a survival round, yeah, it's fine. It's just I'm gonna sit in this cart and I'm gonna chill, guys. Relax. Good luck. And yeah, you can save up on food. Yeah, that's fine.
We got a long ways to go, and I'm gonna hibernate basically.
Yeah, in a sense, I'm just gonna chill.
Did you ever play the old Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game?
Only the computer games.
Oh, so
Not
before the computer games came out, there was
before.
a
No,
tabletop role playing game made by
no,
Palladium, and
no.
when you made your character, you could roll randomly to get your character, which was awesome. So you would roll to see, where your animal species came from, whether it was, from a house, from the wild, was it a bird, was it and then after you figure that out, then you would roll on a chart, a D100 chart to see what you were, and it just made me kind of think that it'd be hilarious to set up a randomizing chart to do that with the Lunestrians.
Yeah, I could definitely try it. See if it's compatible with that.
Yeah, see if it's like, hey, how many are you one feature or full? Are you full animal?
Yeah,
What 1 through
yeah.
10 kind of roll, and then
And
come up
plus the
with
size.
yeah, exactly. It could be a lot of fun just making a party of characters with that just utterly random, and they have no clue what they're going into.
Yeah, yeah. One of my players had like a cat girl with only the cat ears, but because of like slave traders, she cut off her cat ears, so she's kind of deaf.
Oh,
But she looks like a human, so she can fit in. And most players didn't figure it out like hundreds of sessions later.
oh, I love stuff like that. See, And in little things like that, you'll get people like, oh my god, there's bad things in the world. I was like, yeah, and you're playing the good guys trying to defeat the bad things, and sometimes the bad things, make the world a little tougher, and
Yeah,
it's an example that the character took an extreme measure, which gave her a detriment, but made
yeah,
her fit in better and has helped her, through the system.
yeah,
Just like if you play any of the Star Wars games, if you play during the original three movies, there, if you want to play a Jedi, good luck. You're going to be hunted.
yeah. They discovered it. Well, kind of discovered it when she went monster cat mode. But before that, a wizard tried to cast polymorph, but she resisted. So they were like, "Is that the polymorph or not?" But because they were higher levels, he could detect her allies and still went for the wizard. So that was like, what's going on? But she transformed back when the wizard was dead. So they thought it was polymorph.
Nice. See, yeah, it's fun stuff like that. There, where I love it when players are able to keep secrets from amongst each other, and then it becomes this cool plot point that the
Yeah,
other players don't know is happening and unfolds. And when you
I
can
love those
have
games.
something like that with all your players at the table, it's so cool.
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan of passing notes as a GM in long term games. I love getting notes, and I do I encourage getting text messages from players at the table. People are like, you want people to send you messages? I was like, instead of passing me a note, they send me a message, and I have my phone up so I can see it. And sometimes I'll have like notes or something on there. But when I see a message come up from a player, I can see what's going on. They're like, "Hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z, but I don't want the rest of the table to know." And
yeah,
then
it's fun.
if it fits into that, cool. And you had a character, you have a whole species in your system that you can just have tons of fun with cool sideline little bits like that.
Yeah, that's how we create pretty much all the species. Like it needs to be narratively driven, that it has an origin of a story, mostly mythology, or creates story moments that it has something, not just like, oh, you have dark vision. All right, cool. What else can I have? Like our nature elf, depending on where they are raised, their subraces determines their subjects. Like you can have a volcano elf. They pretty much have a negative in intelligence because who the fuck lives in or near a volcano? But they are immune to fire damage. It does say very little in the text below. Doesn't count for swimming in lava. Just so you know, like nobody's stupid enough to do that. It's like you are immune to fire, but not swimming in lava fire.
Yeah,
This is
like
essentially
normal fire.
normal fire.
Yeah,
All right, not the molten rock kind.
yeah,
But those are fun things, and they are pretty much immune. They are immune to the fear safe effects because they live in a volcano.
yeah.
It's
It's
not
like,
much to
ooh,
scare them.
okay, I'm in a volcano. What are you gonna do? You're gonna make my life worse than living in a volcano?
Yeah, basically a fire breath of a ancient fire dragon, and it's like, whew, you got bad breath. What? Who are you?
Like, what's going on here? I grew up in
Yeah, that's,
Iceland. Leave me be.
so everything has some moments of narratively driven moments and potential.
Nice. I really like that. And that's actually like really cool and really I think important. I think it's a something a lot of people have lost in creating races and species and the like in their systems is they go, oh, I have to have elves, I have to have dwarves, I have to, and they forget why they're in the system. It's
Why? Yeah, why?
yeah,
What
they're
does
not
it
in
do?
there
What?
because you have to have them. They're in there because they're different and they're going to help drive story components and the like. I'm creating an RPG. It's many years down the road, but there's only humans, and that is a very specific choice. It's a sci-fi game with only humans, and I had somebody who was like, "Well, if you add alien species and stuff," and I was like, "But they don't. They would detract from the story that I'm trying to create in this universe."
Yeah.
and the differences all come they're all everybody humans are all from
Upbringing,
different alternate
culture,
yeah they're all alternate timelines coming
all
together.
timeline. So yeah.
Yeah, so like if the Roman Empire never fell and made it into 300 years in the future, colonizing worlds.
That is amazing. That's very hard to create because the infinite amount of possibilities is
Yes.
literally there. Yeah,
Yeah. The idea is we have all these different timelines collapsing in on each other. So imagine if the British Empire never fell and they became the dominant culture on Earth and made it to the stars, and now they have to now they're on new worlds interacting with the Roman Empire that never fell, that's made it to the stars. So it's this interesting take on all these, the the what if timelines, basically. You know,
yeah.
what if the Mongol Empire never fell and took over the entire world and made it to space? How let's extrapolate from what we know of the Mongol Empire and take that forward. We do we're trying to do this with as many different interesting cultures that are drastically different and take them forward, and that's why we only want humans. Is the differences are those interesting takes of what if future cultures.
Yeah, I
So
love that. That's amazing.
where
The thing,
oh go ahead.
yeah, go. Yeah, the thing for more from people that are creating things, and it's like I have to do what you just said. I have to have these things. Uh, just make it simple for yourself and ask yourself the why, what, where, when, and how. If you just make sure you keep asking those things, you already make something that is unique. And don't be shy to give them something negative. Like just like when I said with the volcano elves, they have a minus in intelligence, 1 point minus intelligence. All my subspecies have a minus. They have pluses, two pluses, and one minus. So that also gives people a choice that is also tied to their species, their characters, their culture, but it isn't that much of a detriment because they're only minus one. You can still work around it. You can still make a powerful intelligence casting mage with a volcano elf that is pretty much immune to fire damage, so they can cast fireballs centered on themselves as they walk into enemy lines. Everything is possible, but don't be afraid to give them negative traits. Sure, there are people that don't like that, but those mostly are the power builders, the metagamers, and all that. But in a sense, it's only a small portion, but they are the loudest. Be
Yeah,
true to your own creation.
I love games that have the advantages disadvantages things. So like I think that's probably why I've not been the biggest fan of 5e and the newer version, because they're a very superhero system versus a
Yes.
fantasy system. So you're going in kind of as the superhero instead of an adventurer,
Yes.
and it's not a bad game, and
No.
I do like it still, but it's not in my brain what D&D has always been, an adventuring system.
Yes. That's also why one of the things that we created so much, because you are very quickly overpowered. There's a reason why most games don't last past level 10, because the game is not really designed for that. Yet, in the new edition, they have more powerful monsters, but we still need to see, because from what I've seen, people only have created new characters, not really played the game. So we don't know if it works yet.
Yeah, exactly. And you're 100% right that it does break somewhere between that 7 to 10,
Yeah.
and it's why a lot of GMs get burnt out. They don't know how to rein the characters in. And I say that's kind of because we as older players haven't mentored as many of the newer GMs, so we haven't been able to teach them. My people are like, what's the first thing you should teach a new GM? I was like, how to say no. Um,
Yeah.
and because in it's been always been a very important thing for me, because I went into a game in it was definitely I think it was 3.5. I was in the military, moved to a new area, found a new game store, and saw a bunch of games and they were all full, and I was like, oh, you know what? I put a thing up on their bulletin board says, I'll run, looking for a group, I'll GM, and I got 3 players like within an hour, and sat down and they're like, what can we create? I was like, you know what? Go. We'll start out 5th level because you guys said you've all played a bunch, and let's see what we can do. And they're like, any restrictions? Like, you know what? No, go ahead. And they're like, okay, I need this book
Oh,
because I'm looking for this rule on this page. Like they had, there's a reason why those 3 players weren't in games because people were tired of playing with them because they were the uber min maxers. They knew
yeah, yeah, yeah.
all the little, the little things that come together, and it was funny because I played twice a week with them for a while, and some other people like, "Hey, you can join our game because you've been playing with them twice a week for a while. Like none of us could deal with those guys, and you're dealing with all
You
3 of
are
them."
hardy. We want you.
And like I'd always been pretty lax, but most of my players would never like uh, totally break my games, and these 3 guys really pushed the limits, and it was a lot of work to GM, and so as older GMs, we need to teach younger GMs to say no. It's like, hey, that's a cool idea, but it just doesn't fit in the system we're doing right now. How about you kind of keep that off to the side, and maybe I'll work something up for a future game for that character. Something to that effect. You just tell them
Yeah,
no, but in a
yeah.
nice, polite way. Otherwise, you get, I'm a half dragon, half centaur, reverse
Half
mage of
gnome.
doom. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Half centaur, half dragon, half gnome. But that's
Yes.
3 halves. I know, but it works
But
if
I
I
want
do
all of them.
this. Yeah, and
Have
it's
you
like,
ever heard of Man Bear Pig?
yeah, half man, half bear, half pig. And yeah, you get players that come up with these just utterly broken builds that just make the game that make so much work for GM. And what sucks is usually when you get a player that does that, it also makes it less fun for the other players at the table.
Yeah.
So it's finding those happy mediums. That's the other thing I like about what you're doing with your species is your species have a narrative key. Like they do have those negatives that are tied to them, but they're not huge negatives.
No.
But they also have a story component behind those negatives and the positives they have, and that gives things that your GM can take and have a lot of fun with while creating the game. Versus, oh, hey, this was in the back of this book over here, and it's just some random species, half species or whatever that was thrown into a book that was there just to sell extra books.
Yeah. That's something that we also like to address with our things. Like everything we're going to make is going to be complete. Like if we are finally are going to do our deity books, we didn't really talk about deity, so that's maybe all right. Let me just explain that part so we can go to the next one. Our priest paladin and warlock, uh, unlike most games that you have a subclass and you get benefits and then you flavor a deity that might not fit to it, you choose at level 1 the deity that you're going to follow. Those deities will have stat blocks for priest, paladin, warlock, and combined for your character as you level up. So your devotion increase with them as your faith that you follow. So everyone has own unique abilities, which then opens the doorway to possibilities for all kinds of deities, which is what we want to do next book, which is Norse mythology. The complete version of every Norse deity that we know of, because most of them has been lost to time, unfortunately. But what we know of, those deities will be in the book, and all of them will have dedicated power for everything. So you can go hams with that. So if you're running a Norse game, everything will be in there. So we're going to make complete books. You don't need to have 4 or 5 books for those deities. No, everything is in there. Norse mythology done. That's what our goal is for every book that we create.
Speaking of that, so there's a game called Fate of the Norns. It comes out of Canada. So the guy, like his day job is like translating runes and stuff
Oh,
for
yeah.
the Canadian university system. So like he's a researcher that just researched like Norse runes and stuff. And he wanted to make a role playing game based on that. And so instead of dice, he uses runes because he was like
I know that one. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I know that one.
he has a when you said Norse deities, he's converted all the deities for Norse into 5e, and that would probably be a good resource to start with because he has
Yeah.
all the big, all the little, basically everything you can think of. So there's probably a chunk of work already, done for you that you
Should have
can.
learned that a little bit sooner because I'm also pretty much done. A little bit too late because just like with my Kickstarters, I will do the work first. The Kickstarter is
Yes.
just there for the art because I don't need to pay myself. This is my hobby, my baby that I want to give to the world. I'm not here to make a company or profit.
Yeah, and I wish more small game designers would do that. I get it's not as much lately, but I used to get approached all the time about looking at stuff going to Kickstarter, and I've had people send me an email with notes, and I was like, okay, yeah, I'll take a look at the game. They go, oh, what'd you think? I was like, no, you haven't sent me anything. Oh no, all my notes are in there. I was like, so you don't have a game yet? They're like, oh, it'll only take about 6 months or so to get it done. I was like, oh no, 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 no! You have an idea. You don't
Yeah,
have
yeah.
something you can take to Kickstarter.
No,
Be at least 90% done. With you need to flesh flesh out some things. Or Matt Colville, he had a giant crowdfunding thing that we got like $3 million, something like that recently, and literally no game.
yeah.
He was like,
It's absurd.
we're gonna start alpha testing in December." I was like, "What? What do you mean you have no game?" He literally had no game when he launched that. He got $3 million, and that
Yeah.
drove me nuts because I run into small game designers that I've told for years don't do that. And here's somebody that, based upon his social media, he's able to get $3 million for a game that doesn't even remotely exist.
Yeah, he has the knowledge, he has the name, he has the fan base, so he could get away with it. I mean,
Yeah,
that's
and
the only reason.
exactly, and that it's super frustrating because
Yeah,
you get other people that will see that and go, oh well, I can do that too. No, you can't. You don't
yeah,
have a million followers on social media that eat up your mediocre advice.
yeah. And then you have companies like myself that really try to make something with a passion, but because we don't have a name or a social media following, we just get buried under all the
Yeah, and
others.
then you've got you guys got an added problem. There's a computer company that has a very similar name that when you
Yeah,
Google them in the U.S. always comes up first.
yeah. Which is annoying because we had the name all since 2015.
Yeah, when I
So
tell people
yeah,
to look you guys up, tell them look up the company name and the game name, then you
yeah.
guys usually pop up. But if you look up just
Sick
Sacred
and Fire
Fire,
Games.
yeah,
Nope.
always the computer company comes up first.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're probably paying to get ranked higher.
Exactly. But we're a small company. We cannot afford that as of now.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But when we are getting some traction, we already also make our sales on the web shop as well. So we are getting some traction. And the social media helps because we're already at 50% on the Kickstarter as well. And here in the Netherlands, we are pretty much known. We're also going to be spearheading a convention of TTRPG
Nice.
games with all kinds of things. There's going to be the first edition here in September. So we are doing things for the community and show people that there is more than just Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
But yeah, we do that all out of our own pocket.
Yeah. RPGing in Europe is because I talk to a lot of Europeans because we're trying to get more European games into the library, and it's just this weird little world because even with the EU, you're still your own little countries, and it's amazing to see how little a game will get past its own borders sometimes.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like, oh, hey, this is really popular in Poland, or hey,
yeah,
this is really popular in Austria. And it's like, well, if it could just break out of that, it would be, so much bigger. That's
yeah,
why, like, Modifius out of the UK and Free League out of Sweden, I love that both those companies have gotten big, because they're both companies that could be facing similar problems to so many other game companies I talk to that, for some reason or other, they're big in their own country, and they're just and like they're, I can't think of the name of the game, but there's a game that's in Austria that's pretty sizable that is like, Austria speaks German. Like, how is this game not spilled over into Germany?
yeah,
And it's like, talk to German people are like, nope, never heard of it. I was like,
yeah,
it's literally just across the border. You guys are
yeah,
like 45 minutes apart. How have you
yeah.
never heard of this?
The important thing is in what language it is written. Because when we were at Spiel Essen selling our books, first it didn't have much traction, but we had someone who was going to interpret it, and he explained it, and everybody was like, "When is it coming out in German?" Like German people want German books because
Yes.
it's easier for them. People can speak English with the universal language and all that, but they are comfortable in their own language.
Yes. Yeah, German is it's definitely one of those ones. Everybody I know that is from Germany, they all speak English, but they almost, I mean, and they can read English, but they almost exclusively read everything in German.
Yeah,
They just
yeah.
said
It's absurd.
yeah,
It's weird. Like
yeah,
they don't even need to know it's a good product. It's like it's in German. I want to have it. It's
yes,
weird. It's so
yeah.
weird.
That's why board games. There's tons of board games that are created in
Yeah,
Germany, and they sell like crazy because they're printed in German first, and then they send them out somewhere to be translated and maybe sold
yeah,
elsewhere. But yeah, if they start there, they definitely love their homegrown German stuff.
yeah, yeah. Or also from like they want my game, but they are now waiting until it is translated. It's like, wait until the Kickstarter is over. We're gonna make a translation because we want to get all the kinks out from the original core book. Give all the art that it needs to be in there because that's my greatest frustration with the first one because I paid everything from myself because the first Kickstarter failed. But yeah, it's lacking art. We made a lot of art that's going to be in the book as of now because those 2 years I have saved up, but it's not there yet. So the minimum is there for 2,500. If we get that, the minimum art will be in the book that we are comfortable with, and everything more will be just more extraordinary art, full page art, like with what we have with the Averron page, the Barbarian page. It's just like, yeah, those are things that we want to create and what we want to do.
Are you working with local artists, or are you?
Yeah, it will be the same artist that has worked on the book so far, Melvin Groenendijk, uh, which is an artist that is amazing, worked for many big companies, but his art will be never shown because they are vaulted, which is frustrating for him.
Oh,
Which is also a reason why he pretty much gave up on it because he put so much love and attention to it. So he's an artist that thinks he's not good enough, and then I showed his art that's in the book, and people are like, "This is amazing." Fun fact: I actually dragged him to Spiel Essen, Germany, uh, for the first convention, and people were complimenting. And one of the artists that he really looked up to was there. He was also an art designer for Magic the Gathering. He actually bought a book and wanted his autograph into it.
that's
That
awesome.
was a beautiful, yeah. We had a little booth because we had some dice that we sold actually. He went behind that for a moment, and yeah, he was not crying for 15 minutes. So yeah, that
His
was
his
amazing. Yeah,
his face was leaking joy.
yes, yes, definitely. The creative joy that was oozing out.
Yes, and that's
Yeah,
awesome. It's like when you get somebody that you respect,
yeah,
that can look at your work and say, "Hey, you've done some good stuff here." That's a huge boost. And speaking on the having stuff go into projects that just gets locked away, I've I've tons of photography and stuff that I've done over the years that has gone to projects that have just been locked away, and I have NDAs that I've signed, and I have cool
Yeah,
art, I have cool photography that'll never be shared. So I
yeah.
understand his pain, and it's like I have the photos, I can see the photos, but I can never share the photos.
Can never show it to anyone. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
and he got that for 6 or 7 years straight. So yeah,
oh,
good luck with
yeah,
your portfolio.
yeah.
That
Oh,
hurts.
that's the thing that really sucks is like, hey, I've worked for all these companies. Oh, can we see your work? No.
Nope.
Yeah. And I have NDAs with companies that basically because they never released the product, I can't say that I worked with them because what I was paid for by them was never released. So
Yeah,
technically, there was no
yeah,
product, and I've never worked for them. And it's like, oh, awesome guys. I can't put that I've worked with Fortune 500 companies on stuff. It's
yeah,
like thanks.
yeah. Yeah, that's also why he got so low and didn't believe in himself because he was like, yeah, he got paid
Yeah.
well, but
and
yeah,
and money's nice and keeps a roof over your head, but it's not everything. And that money, especially when you're on those projects that kind of continuously stunt, you're like, yeah, look, I have nothing to get me more work beyond this.
yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about your game?
I think we nailed pretty much all the crucial things, like that it's easy for players to get into, create their characters. For game masters, there's an extensive list with little snippet bullet point tips and tricks. That's chapter 12, which is amazing for beginning and experienced game masters. We have constellations, birth signs for people that want to have that a little bit of a flavor thing.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, many people are like, "Oh, Oblivion, Elder Scrolls." Is like, yes, yes, it is. It was definitely inspired by that. I'm not gonna lie about that. Like, I'm not gonna steal or claim clements. It means just constellations, but it gives so much for the players, like a little boosting power for technique that isn't really strong. Gives birthdays for their characters and a whole calendar year for the game masters. Everybody benefits. Like just like I said, everything is created to boost narrative.
Yes.
Yeah, what else? We got the weapons, we got the armors, we got the dodge system. Yeah, pretty much all the crucial points. I mean, you can look at the Kickstarter, there's more information, and there is a free PDF that you can download on the website. So if you want to dive in and not pay for it, that is fine. You can support me with that and give your feedback because we always want more feedback because we want to make it better and better. And I think that is pretty much it to it.
And if people start homebrewing cool stuff, send it to him. I guarantee that he will he'll take a gander at it and maybe make it into something in the future. Yeah, that's how some of the coolest stuff in the early days was made.
Yeah,
The Fiend Folio from D&D that actually came from Games Workshop it was a section in the White Dwarf magazine. Every month, people would send in their monsters to White Dwarf from the UK, and then they took the coolest their favorites and they put it into a book, and then that got published as the Fiend Folio. So that is all homebrew stuff from the late 70s.
nice.
All UK based too.
Yeah.
And I wish
Uh,
I wish we had more stuff like that
yeah.
nowadays.
I think the only thing I want to say is like if you want to have a realistic monster and you want to harass your players as a game master because you have mid-maxing players, uh, take a look at the free PDF and find the hippo and have fun with that because it is based on the real hippo, not the D&D hippo.
Yeah,
If you have seen it, you have the book. If you have seen it, yeah, many people are like, "Oh yes, that's a hippo."
yeah. Hippos are very territorial and super dangerous. You know,
Super dangerous, most deadliest creature. Yeah,
yeah, they will snap a human in half. Well, it's been awesome talking to you. I'm
yeah,
excited for this. I really hope that you get over the hump on this one. So it goes to the end of February, and the library has backed it. and I'm hoping as many people as we can talk to in the next few weeks will back it. I'm gonna make some more comments on social media about it and a couple other games,
That's amazing.
because it's a really cool idea, because it is that really good gateway. It's like the other gateway game I've been pointing to people to has been Shadow Dark, because it's like OSR with 5e.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you know 5e, you can get the other stuff. If you know SR, you can pick up. But this is, hey, let's put something new and cool on top of what you know for 5e and or Pathfinder, and let's take you to a whole new realm that isn't this dark, sterile, kind of broken
Yeah.
game.
Literally, your imagination is your only limit at that point.
Yeah. So I'm excited, looking forward to seeing this the update to this, and we've chatted about where you're going to go in the future, and I'm excited to help out any way that we can. The library likes it, and we're going to talk about it a bunch over the coming weeks. And as soon as we get a new book in hand, be showcasing that and showing people the new book and going, hey, here's a new direction to go.
Yes, amazing. I would say, because we have promised it, we haven't follow up on it. When the Kickstarter is over, good or bad, we're going to run a game.
Yes, we do need to run a game.
Still need to do it.
Yeah. Yes, we're gonna get some players together, and we'll do that we'll do a live stream of that. So we'll coordinate that. So March April timeframe.
Yeah, that's fine. We
Yeah,
can make it work.
yeah, we'll do some planning ahead. We got to plan around conventions. I think April is when convention season starts getting crazy for us. Um,
Yeah, we will
but
see. When the Kickstarter is done and we can launch the new PDF for the updated version of Grand Odyssey, we can base the characters that, and we can have some fun and see how the system works.
Awesome. I look forward to that. Well,
All right.
thank you for tuning in, and thank you for everybody out there watching. And go check out Grand Odyssey on Kickstarter. It is live until February 27th of 2025. Good system, good game, good people behind it. So go out and help support not a local game designer, but a global game designer.
Yeah, I feel so important now.
Okay, and I'm going to stop recording.